So two pranayama techniques that are particularly good for hormone balancing are the cooling breath, Sitali, and the heating breath, Bastrika, or breath of fire. And both of these can be used in different situations. So for the cooling breath, it's absolutely brilliant if you tend towards hot flushes or those awful feelings of heat that come from perimenopausal and menopausal change. Or if you're still deeply entrenched in your menstrual cycle and you tend to get lots of hormonal style neck pain and headaches. So Sitali in particular is really, really good at supporting the fluid unlocking of an upper chest breathing pattern of someone who tends towards being anxious, overheating, or basically locked in a head and neck kind of pattern of tension. And we know that this is so important for pelvic floor well-being as well, that we unlock the upper chest so that we can actually reach the movement of the breath into the lower body, and so that it doesn't get fixed in the upper chest as well. So Sitali is a beautiful practice for these purposes. And what we need to be able to do is roll our tongue, which is something I've actually not got the gene for. So some of us don't have the gene for the rolled tongue, can't make the tube shape. So we would purse the lips or put the tongue behind the teeth for this practice. Now, typically, Sitali is done with a deep inhalation phase followed by an exhalation phase. And in this case, we're actually going to bring neck and shoulder movements in as if we were diving down into a pond of beautiful, nourishing, nurturing water like a little birdie, and scooping the water up in our beak and lifting the water up on the inhalation phase. So it's a tuck the chin in, let the breath out naturally, and just feel the pelvic floor recoiling. On the exhalation phase, the pelvic floor will move towards the spine. Just gently allow it to come without any effort. And again, let's do 3 more of these. Last one. The other thing to add there is that because we're getting a slight Jalandhara Bandha or chin tuck on the exhalation phase, and we're allowing the pelvic floor to be a passive recoil, this is really awesome for the thyroid gland. So if the thyroid gland is under or overactive, it's a beautiful way of making sure we get the energy flowing through that gland, or the blood flowing through that gland, simply through the mechanics of the posture itself. So the next pranayama practice, which is also a wonderful hormone balancing practice, is really, really good if you're someone who gets really cold really easily, or is a little bit vata imbalanced. It's not a good practice for someone with high blood pressure or someone who's pregnant, but it is a really awesome heating pose, and it's a really nice way to come out of a funk if you're feeling depressed, fatigued, heavy, like you've got no energy, or if you've had a really dense meal that was full of fat. You know, even if it's good fat, it can still sometimes be heavy and dense in the digestive system. So it's a great one for actually supporting your metabolic function and digestion in the body. So it's actually the breath of fire, but the way we're going to do it is we're going to create a little teepee or a prana tent around us. So we're going to imagine that there's a number of points that we focus our energy and attention on. The first point is in front of the pubic bone at the front of the body, just a few inches in front, a few inches out to one sitting bone side, a few inches out to the other sitting bone side, a point behind the tailbone, another point above the crown of the head, and then a point right in the center of the perineal diamond. And what we do is we just focus our attention onto those points so that we can actually create a feeling of being anchored inside this pyramid of prana, this beautiful prana tent, as I like to call it. So if you're pregnant, don't do the practice. And if you know your blood pressure is a bit high, be very gentle with the practice. I generally do between 3 to 5 breaths each point, but we can just do 3 breaths to start with, and then you can decide if you'd like to do more. The one thing about this practice that we are going to really focus on though, which isn't generally cued and it should be, is the practice of pelvic floor contraction on the forced exhalation. So a typical Bhastrika involves a pumping of the tummy, and we want to still get that lovely transverse abdominis and abdominal wall to pump the exhalation phase of the breath, but we also want to get our pelvic floor working into a contraction, because we all know now that if we engage abdominals without a pelvic floor contraction to go with them, we could actually be really pushing a prolapse or a pelvic floor into strain. So let's start this one. So we'll take our gaze and our awareness to the point in front of the pubic bone to start with for 3 breaths. Over to the sitting bone, behind the tailbone, over to the opposite sitting bone, above the crown of the head, and right in the center of the perineal diamond. And because we've got 6 points, if that's 3 fast pulses each point, then we're looking at 18 fast twitch contractions of the pelvic floor if we do the 3 points. And that's plenty, yeah, because we don't want to overwork our pelvic floor muscles. They're really small muscles and they need to have a little bit of a chance to recover after so many reps. So once we've done the prana tent practice, we sit quietly in and just soak up the warmth of and the effects of the practice for a few minutes. A minimum of 4 minutes is what the nervous system likes, so that we can actually really feel, savor, and appreciate the warmth and the comfort of that particular practice. So I hope you enjoy those 2 tools for your toolkits, and yeah, enjoy practicing them and enjoy teaching them and enjoy sharing the love. Namaste.